I'll say this. I agreed 2 days ago. I haven't signed anything, but I have agreed 2 days ago to resume filming with a new professional film crew with intents on documenting things that are happening.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm extremely excited to have someone that I love to chat with. Phil, I'm absolutely excited to have you on the podcast for the next few hours. Welcome to the podcast, buddy.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Now, I'm getting sick of this podcast stuff over Zoom. It's frustrating. I would love to be there in person with you. And I'm excited for the world to open back up. Australia is the most confined prison cell at the moment. We can't do anything. But I'm excited to get over to the US and meet you in person. But bro, tell me what's happening at the moment.
I live in Canada.
Live in Canada.
That's where I live, in fact. So yeah, I'm in Niagara Falls, Canada. So don't waste your time going to the States because, in fact, I don't think from the US to Canada that you can actually travel very easily. So just make the trip directly into Canada. Not much easier, but if you're going to do quarantine, you'd rather do it once than twice.
You were in the US for a while though, weren't you?
I travel the US when I do some of my advocacy work and whatnot. So if you will have heard me on the Joe Rogan podcast, that would have been in January, for instance, this past visit, and that would have been when I was in Austin.
Yeah, nice. And you're good mates with Joe, aren't you?
Yeah. We've over the many years that we've been doing these podcasts, we've actually developed quite a good friendship. He is, I would call him my number one supporter, but whereas most people know me for my advocacy, it's not just by virtue of the advocacy that he's supportive. He is just supportive of me trying in every which way to endeavor to be a better human, you know?
Yeah, fantastic. Now, for anyone that doesn't really know who you are and hasn't heard of you, bro, give me the rundown. What's the last 15 years look like from walrus trainer to being the biggest enemy of the walrus trainers? Oh.
So I worked at a place called Marineland of Canada here in Niagara Falls, and it's a place that was established by a Slovenian immigrant back in the 50s. He came here speaking little English, but he had a dream and ruthlessly built that dream. And I had the both pleasure and displeasure of helping him realize that dream between the years of 2000 and 2012, when I worked at Marineland as a walrus trainer, a whale trainer. I worked with killer whales, dolphins, beluga whales, seals, sea lions, walruses. I mean, but the story gets of my particular involvement at Marineland gets unique when a walrus at about the 50% mark of my tenure there decided that I was her mom. And it was through this unique and challenging and cursed and blessed relationship that I both came to learn about much about myself and much about what is the actual needs for the animals that were at a place like Marineland. And so, and the fact that they needed a voice. And so near the latter portions of my time there, I became a little more vocal for the animals. And eventually to the point where Marineland and I were no longer seeing eye to eye. And I'd realized that staying in-house, you know, especially when you're watching animals that are you're friends with over a great deal of time that you love, and especially in light of my unique relationship with Smooshie, where you've got an animal that I suddenly have a family-like relationship with. You're watching these animals suffer, and you're their voice, and you find that you're falling on deaf ears. It became evident that I had to quit. And so in 2012, I quit my job, and then the media started to call me and ask me why it is that I quit my job, and I didn't want to speak. I wasn't interested in speaking. And then one day, on account of a broken promise between Marineland and I went back to the park after leaving, and I saw Smooshie the walrus that believes that I'm her mom. And at the time, they had promised that if anything had happened to her or if she needed any attention, they would call me back. And When I got there, I'd realized that they weren't, in fact, going to make good with that agreement. She was in terrible condition. And so I picked up the phone, called the media, and said, I'm willing to talk. And not only that, I'm willing to put my name and face to every word I say. I am no longer in fear of legal reprisal. I don't care what Marineland does. If I don't do anything, my animals are going to die. And here we are now, 9 years later. Many of my animals have died. Many continue to die. The owner of Marineland is dead. I'm sued for millions of dollars on account of a plot to steal Smooshie the Walrus. Whale, dolphin, and porpoise captivity is now banned in Canada. Marineland has lost no less than 15 beluga whales in the last 15 months. And when I say lost, I mean buried because they're dead, but they're quietly trying to keep a water disinfection breakdown catastrophe that's happening, that is resulting in inordinate amounts of suffering and death. They're trying to keep secret as we speak. And as we speak, I've been providing this summer. So in the last 3 months, we've gone viral 3 times on releasing secret, if you will, difficult to access footage and vantage points of animals suffering. And the war between Marineland and I is at an absolute boiling point.
It's sad, man. Like I'm in almost tears at the moment every time you talk or I hear you talk about it. I've watched parts of your documentary. I've never been able to sit there and watch the whole thing because that is just sad, man. But I guess it's the reality of what's happening. And I think that's why although it's not exactly what our organization does, it's why I wanted to get you on this podcast, because you are saving the future of a lot of torture to animals and helping people understand that this is not okay. And what's the 9 years you talk about of fighting this battle, multiple lawsuits? I know the answer to this question if I was in your position, but is it worth it? Like all of this hard work you've been through?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be who I am today. And I'm someone that has reason to be very proud. Now, it comes with a great deal of conflict. It comes with a great deal of, there's an inordinate amount of stress that you have to navigate and deal with. But, having said that, life is such that you are served up just what you need. And maybe I needed an inordinate amount of stress because I've managed to navigate with it and be effective with it. So I can't have been wrong in accepting what seemed like a mission to me, but no regrets. Absolutely not. In fact, in every which way that it's been arduous and long, it feels as though I'm starting to wish that it goes longer. And that's a strange thing to express, but when it in the realm of fighting abuse and defending against abuse and being the recipient of abuse, and frankly, being also the karmic sort of redistributor of that abuse, if you will, of that energy, which in turn hurts Marineland. This is a gift. Like it is. I have the best seat in the house for what could be called one of the most expeditious revolutions in the last 10 years. I mean, you're looking at a very, very fast paradigm shift. When I quit Marineland in 2012, that was a celebrated industry. That was before the documentary Blackfish. Everyone loved Marineland. The place was busy. SeaWorlds were busy. They were burgeoning. I was almost never challenged as to what it is that I did. Here we are 9 years later, and there are most people in the very region where Marineland used to absolutely dominate the airwaves in terms of advertising and whatnot. Most kids don't even know what Marineland is. And that's only a decade. In one more decade, we will have eradicated, I believe in one more decade, if we haven't eradicated all of whale captivity in Canada at least, which is a guarantee. I mean, I'll stamp a guarantee on that. But if all of North America sort of falls in, we'll have whales in sanctuaries along the coast, both west and east coast of North America. And my belief is there won't be it would be an absolute detriment to be holding a whale in the wild. You'll be protested and revolted against it. You'll be absolutely incentivized. And that, frankly, I feel like that's what my mission's been. It's been on one hand to expose the reality and the truth of what's happening at zoos and aquariums, but also to incentivize them to change, because if they don't, then we will destroy you.
Now, tell me what's so for the people sitting there going, what are they doing? Because I know 5 years ago I was a pro for the wildlife centers, and I still, like, I volunteered there when I was a kid. I actually volunteered as a trainer, as long as my sister's actually a dolphin trainer here in Australia.
Is that on the Gold Coast?
Yeah, so she did it in Coffs Harbour in a place called Marine Magic, and they consistently have people protesting at them. But at that age, I was a bit too young to really register that this is probably wrong. But I never saw anything untoward. I always saw them treated well. And then when I got older and I started seeing what was happening in other countries, I was like, really? Like in Australia, as far as I've seen, they're well looked after, but doesn't make it right. And that's why I'm not going to put my opinion on whether they should be in a cage or not, because the ones in Australia, like, the only way we can do rescue for the ones that are around here, and the whales and the dolphins out in the wild, is if we keep the ones in captivity so that they can have the same sort of funding to the rescue centers. But
I mean, there's a challenge to that. Of course, that's what they say. Of course, that is what they hang their hat on. Of course.
Yeah, and that's what people believe. But yeah, it's something that I don't want to comment on until I can actually see some evidence in Australia that they're mistreating them, because everything I've ever seen, like, my sister's one of the most passionate dolphin trainers ever. And I know for a fact she would never hurt them, but it's one of the most intellectual animals, and it's living in a freaking pool. Like for all you people sitting out there in a bedroom in quarantine at the moment, like, think about spending your whole entire life with 3 times the intelligence in a pool. Like, come on, like, it's ridiculous. And that's my opinion. But another thing I wanted to ask is, can you tell me what's actually happening in captivity in the US, like, for people that don't understand it?
Well, much of the issue of captivity is just that the animals that people have historically suggested thrived in them, we're learning that the data suggests completely otherwise. I mean, lifespans of animals, of whales, are more than halved in captivity. The animals that are born in captivity are rarely registered as born, because they die just as frequently as they're born. And these are not unnatural environments. And when you try to replicate, not only are you putting walls around animals that otherwise don't have any, especially animals that are acoustically sensitive. You know, they use echolocation, and their ears are very sensitive. But you're also trying to replicate the water. That's a big challenge.
Very.
And so the industry will tell you that they do a good job of it. But do you know of any ocean that has chlorine and ozone and having to put minerals and salts and that relies on a filtration system that if the profits in a particular year don't necessarily meet a certain threshold, that perhaps the filtration system gets forgotten in the mix of maintenance for that year as a cost saving measure? I mean, can you imagine what it must be like being pulled to your natural environment where you don't understand what a wall is, and then put into an environment where all you know are walls? I mean, frankly, that's exactly it. If you're a dolphin, you don't necessarily know you're in water, but you know that if you swim straight, you're not going to hit something. I mean, that has to be like us walking into invisible walls, right? Except for where the concrete is. I mean, it just must be, I try to put myself in, it's always so easy when we apply our human perspective to animals, but, it'd be virtually impossible to try to actually understand and replicate what it must be like being captured from the wild, taken away from your family, and then arguably by a being that you're completely unfamiliar with. So it'd be akin to being abducted by aliens and put in an environment that you can't conceive to be familiar with, and then put there for the remainder of your life. And then the shame and the sad thing is Dolphins always play nice. Dolphins, whales, and they just play nice. They just want to play by the rules. That's what makes training them so easy. It's what convinces you that they're well taken care of in captivity. It's because they just want to play nice. Their intentions are just so good. They're just not malicious. They're not dangerous. They want to do good. It's almost as if every minute of every day they're trying to crack the code of, what do I have to do to get out of here?
Yeah. It's ridiculous when you think about it. Like I look at it in Australia and I'm like, there's just so far. Like I can't even imagine a world where we don't have them in captivity in Australia. But it seems like in the US that you're actually making a massive difference. Now, if it's
well, we spoke in fresh. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but while it's still fresh on my mind, I was witness to, or rather, I gave testimony as witness to a law that was passed in the state of New South Wales. I'm not familiar with Australia too much, but it was a live performance ban on dolphins, whales, and porpoises in captivities, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe I have to go back and review the law, but it had been adopted and passed. So maybe the animals that are there, if there are any, are just as well as in the US and in Canada. When a law is adopted, the animals, by virtue of property laws, get grandfathered in. So the law doesn't actually apply to the ones that are currently in captivity, but thereafter, the law applies. So then it's a practice that's banned. So in Canada, you've got example is a place called Marineland, that while they can no longer breed whales and dolphins, they can't unimpededly import and export. The captivity of those animals is deemed illegal, but because they already own them, Marineland is able to keep them. So the same would apply perhaps in New South Wales, and then elsewhere as these laws get adopted. And in the States, we know there's a bunch of states that are adopting these laws. Federally, it's been a challenge to try to get it on the agenda. But, if the states continue down the path that they are and independently outlaw these practices, it might not have to be, sometimes, the strange thing about passing laws is it's a shame that in most cases that it's even needed. It seems like it doesn't even, why does it have to be in? So when we vote with our dollars as consumers, largely we can eradicate practices that we just simply don't support. And that's going to happen, I think, probably at a rate faster than that of the passing and adoption of laws.
Yeah. Now, you've done a lot in the US, a lot in Canada. What's the journey for the rest of the world? Are you interested in the rest of the world? What's that like?
Well, of course. I mean, right now, what I would like to see is, rather than merely ban the practice of whale captivity, I'd like to see Canada step up and say, not only are we doing that, in fact, we're eradicating it. We're expediting the eradication of it. We are assisting and supporting the creation of a sanctuary, and we are going to take those animals and put them into those sanctuaries so that those animals that we otherwise allowed through a void of laws to be in captivity, through the passing of new laws and through this paradigm shift, we're not only going to say, hey, these animals are grandfathered in, shame and watch them die, which is actually what's happening now. I'm saying it's time to pull our pants up as a country and take responsibility for the suffering of animals through our void of laws and through the passing of new laws. And we should do right by those animals and offer them a level of protection they've otherwise don't have, and take them out of this environment that's otherwise killing them. So there's plenty of work for me to do right here. So for me, there's like I said earlier, there's the passing of and banning of these facilities through legislation. But I'd prefer to see just a paradigm shift sweep the planet, that if Canada goes ahead and does something like create and endorse and support a whale sanctuary, and it proves to be viable and in the best interests of animals and those who create and support it, then that model may be something that is example for the rest of the world, so that they see that, okay, we can pass laws. Sure, passing laws takes years. In advance of that, let's build sanctuaries. Let's get those supported. And maybe the likes of SeaWorld and other places might say, the writing's on the wall. We're gonna fund and support this. We want our name on it, and through the graces of, I believe that combination is what's going to win, is what's going to what's going to appease all parties. And I see the likes of SeaWorld and other places being like, okay, rather than be stuck with these animals, and rather than looking at them as assets that can be sold for profit only to the likes of China, where for instance, these places are burgeoning, we're going to remedy a situation for these animals. And through that, I think that we can create a new, totally viable business model, one that SeaWorld can be totally proud of. They got tons of beautiful land. Fill up those pools, fill them up, build amphitheaters where you can watch perhaps live feeds of the actual whales that people are now supporting to pay to release on be it wherever the coast. A lot of SeaWorlds are not far from the actual ocean. Yeah. Just so crazy, right? So anyways, I just see of the future, rather than being, let's legislate things. No, let's build new things. There's a saying, if you build it, they will come. They're here. They're already here. Let's build these things. Let's go. I want Canada to be first.
Now I've seen they're putting together these robotic dolphins and robotic ones that can go in tanks that simulate what it would really be like. Is that something people are going to get behind? Like, obviously people are going to go in and go, I know that's not real. Like, is it going to give the people who really don't care, but they're just there with their kids, like, is that going to give them the satisfaction?
Did you know that the military will use flight simulators very often as means to actually train people, so as to not have to put people in jets and not have to spend jet fuel and everything else? How different would that be than to enter a pool with a dolphin? I mean, frankly, it's just a question of it's only humans that have rationalized swimming with dolphins and interacting with them. Somehow that's supposed to be a normal thing. When did this become normal? We don't have simulations like we don't. I'm not dancing with bears and necessarily with lions. I mean, we shouldn't be. I mean, we know that in the situations that those are happening, it's awful and cruel and everything else. So, okay, I see a robotic dolphin as a learning tool, but is it a means to substitute the excitement we get for swimming with them? Well, how about we lose the whole idea that it's exciting to swim with them? Sorry, I'm putting this into my ear. I'm not saying shoot ourselves in the head. I'm just saying, like, the whole idea that we've conditioned the idea that it's fun to swim with dolphins. Well, of course it would be. Would it be just as fun to jump on a missile of a submarine, hold on for dear life? Like, we could simulate excitement in many different ways. I, frankly, having swum with dolphins and whales and sea lions and walruses and all those things, there was almost exactly nothing more exciting for me than to actually see a pod of hunting transients take down an actual seal. You can actually smell it in the air. I mean, this was something crazy, but this was a function of nature that was awe-inspiring to watch them as a team hunt and in the wild with their the way that they're so dynamic, and to see them and to imagine myself and relate to them in that vast body of water versus whereas I used to interact with them in these little pools and think that the animal was excited to do so with me. It was just a matter of my conditioned thoughts. So yeah, robotic animals to do what with? Anything? Okay, so if people want to still replicate this weirdo obsession with swim with dolphins, okay. But otherwise, no, we should be learning about their environment and preserving it, and we should be getting excitement out of their thriving in it. There's nothing more exciting than seeing dolphins being born and whales being born and being healthy, and seeing a thriving environment where the Chinook salmon are so big that there's too many for the whales. Like, I'm tired of seeing all these whales in perilous situations. Like, let's get excited about rewilding nature.
Yeah. Now, you spoke just then about diving with them, and I dove with them in the parks when I was a kid. Never with whales in a park, because in Australia we don't have any whales or stuff in parks. But a few months ago now, I was out on the Gold Coast when the crossing was happening, when they were heading up north, and I out in the jet ski, and I just slid in the side of the jet ski, put the goggles on and the fins, and I'm next to a pod of, it was 6 massive big whales, and there was dolphins. They were all feeding on the fish around. And I didn't have my camera with me this day because I have an underwater casing for
I'm
my
getting
DSLR.
goosebumps.
And I just ducked in, and I'm an avid freediver. Like, I love freediving. I love scuba diving, massive fan of it. And I just jump in, and I'm probably 3 car lengths away from this whale that's the size of a bus. And I'm like, this could kill me if it wanted to. It could, without me even thinking about it, it could kill me. If it plopped its tail on me, I'd dead. They're the calmest animals, and the dolphins coming up, jetting next to me, and then they slow right down and they stop right next to me. I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing ever. And I'd swam with them all in parks, and I'm like, I never got that feeling in a park. And so for me, I'm starting to believe that if you really truly want to be around them, get on a tour boat and go out and watch them like that, because that's the beautiful thing is, or put on a documentary, because seriously, you can get some crazy goosebump feelings.
It's that awe-inspiring feeling. And isn't it a strange thing that that's exactly what parks take away from you, and then they replicate it through music and drama and dance? It's as if they have to give you all this neon light show to make up for the fact that what you're looking at is organically, naturally sad. No one approaches that with yay out of the gates. You have to be convinced. Parents have to pay the money, and as soon as they pay the money, they're already convinced they have to have a good time. So whatever the hell they're seeing, despite it being rusty bars and animals missing furs and just it doesn't matter. People can convince themselves of anything. They really can. There's confirmation bias all the time, and especially when we're passing the dollars around for an end and saying that it's for our children's benefit. I mean, and then they become defensive, and it becomes a toxic cycle of thinking. But the reality is, there is nothing more awe-inspiring than seeing them in their natural environment and being a stranger in their natural environment. Suddenly, you don't have the comfort of those walls and that glass between you and the dolphins. And suddenly you're like, oh, wait a second. Like you say, they could kill me right now. I mean, frankly, they could do anything they wanted to me. I'm very vulnerable to that. That's the thing we take away from animals. And that's the exact way that we lose our respect for animals. It's like watching a bear in a cage. You look at it, you're like, haha, look at that. And then you walk away and you forget. But that bear spends the rest of its lifetime in that cage. You go approach a bear in the wild for a moment, and it looks at you, and you realize that you no longer have the space needed to escape. And now you've met a bear. That feeling, now you know what it means to meet a bear. That's the feeling you should get meeting bears. You're not supposed to be like, ha 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 ha, ha and throwing popcorn at it. That's not meeting a bear.
No. I remember that when I was in a bushwalk here in Australia and seeing like wild boars, like wild pigs, and they can get ruthless when they want to. And like the same feeling, I've never seen a bear, because obviously in Australia we don't have them, but that feeling of seeing a wild animal and realizing that it's going to kill me if it wants to, it's going to attack me, like
you're in its world.
Real, like that's the real life. But I think I have this, I'm growing this cool audience of people where we're really spread out among what people are interested in. And that's what I want, right? I want to be able to have a voice for everything to do with the environment. And although it's early days, I'm really excited to see it grow. But there's a lot of people that follow me that want and have these dreams of doing big things like what you've done. But I see the law side of things and the consistent fight that you have to put up with. Can you give me some context on what that's like and the things that you're doing to prevent making yourself vulnerable?
So what I've done is, rather than be associated by, sponsored by, filtered by, I've done everything entirely. Now, I don't say this, I have to say this because it's not entirely true. I should mention I stand on the shoulders of giants, but I've had to do everything myself. So what I mean is, in order for me to maintain my independence, I could not have pledged allegiance to, for instance, a PETA organization, or a particular animal rights organization. I couldn't have become a spokesperson for a particular thing. I couldn't have been paid for or sponsored by an organization only, because what happens then is now I speak in the interest of that organization, or I speak within the parameters of what they believe to be acceptable or politically sensitive, whatever. What I've done is I've just made myself invaluable in all aspects of advocacy, be it in my experience in and able to offer it at the legislative aspect of it all. When it comes to media, rather than rely on a media that relies on Marineland's advertising dollars, I started my own social medias. So I've had a great deal of success with them. So Twitter, Instagram, in fact, just recently TikTok, Facebook, etc. So whereas Marineland specifically will target and threat media that talk to me, and podcasters and etc. They can do that to me all day. I still will publish and produce the content that they don't want me to. And time again, in being resilient and independent, what I've found is I am being supported by many individuals. When you start to get sponsored by lots, a little bit, but by lots of people, you become sort of decentralized. Suddenly, you become immutable. You are powered by by the fuel of the people, the will of the people. So I've had the benefit of being able to be a real pain in the ass and put myself in situations that I would otherwise not be able to, and say the things that I would otherwise not be able to, because I've managed to be exclusively me, fighting for the interests of the animals exclusively. I don't rely on, I criticize animal rights organizations. I criticize scientists. I criticize myself, activists. I mean, I've butted heads with activists more voraciously than with Marineland. I've received criticism from the likes of what would be supporters than not, but it's because not everyone likes the way I do things. But when I was laying down on my bedroom floor in a fetal position, wondering what is it that I can do to save those animals, well, I made a promise that I was going to do everything I can to save those animals. And my promise was to those animals and to myself. I never made allegiance to the police. I never pledged allegiance to the government that they were going to take care of them. I never pledged allegiance to PETA or any of these animal rights organizations or sanctuaries or anything. I never pledged allegiance to them that I'm in your hands, rescue me, rescue me. I said, no. Everyone comes in when the headlines are rolling. Free Kiska is a worldwide global campaign. Everyone is suddenly interested in fighting for Kiska. People that had been fighting for years and had given up are suddenly back in the picture. Everyone wants to weigh in on their opinion. Everyone wants to purport to be an expert. Everyone suddenly, in the 11th hour,
everyone wants
to
be
fight.
On the winning team.
Right. Well, guess what? I've got the microphone. It's my microphone. And I'm here to do everything that I can in every which way. But it is to help those animals. It is not to help any specific organizations or anyone else that are otherwise taking my intellectual property, grabbing my videos, trying to make. They're always trying to create petitions and fundraisers and everything else, and frankly, all I see is people trying to tug at a microphone. Yeah. At the end of the day, and this is what I say to anyone who wants to do this. This is a day and age and era where you can create for yourself your own media legacy. You're doing the exact thing. You're creating a platform where you speak of the things that interest you. You filter out what it is that you care to be shared or not. And that is, and at the end of the day, people will put their faith in or not in what it is that you distribute as information. That makes you dangerous. It just makes you dangerous. It just does. And then if you have a bunch of people supporting you on individual bases, then how can you ever be stopped? How can you be muted? Whereas if there's someone with a heavier hand that's sort of sponsoring you and tailoring what it is that you say and do, well, suddenly with our confirmation bias and everything else in life and all of our biases, our messages get tailored. My suggestion always is definitely be clear and concise in your mission, and don't sway, and don't let anyone reach in and grab at it. Because again, when I was on the floor on my own, there wasn't a lot of people purporting to help me. I knew, in fact, there was no one purporting to help me. This was going to be done by myself. When I came out, there was a lot of people promising and purporting to help me, and they did for a bit, and then they disappeared, and then you saw that they were helping themselves. Guess what? I am still going. And a lot of them are wanting to come back because, well, they lost a little bit of attention. But at the end of the day, it's still my microphone and I'm not sharing it. My message is clear. I want to take animals out of Marineland's water, and I want to put them back into natural bodies of water. Any which way that I can help expedite that, wonderful. If any other means or parties or everything or interests come into play, and they become, or they try to take attention from that, because very often that happens, especially with politicians, etc. Then I make them speed bumps. I'm sorry, this is distracting. We're trying to save animals. We need to propose legislation. Hi, I'm the leader of the Green Party, and in this election, I believe that we no. Yeah. So just as a means to elaborate, I don't know if you edit in post-production or what, just to make things a lot simpler, but really the thing that I give as advice these days is be independent. It's crazy. And I say that because if you look to donate your time and everything too often to other organizations, then your message gets lost. It's just like, and I'm not using your sister as an example of something that is bad. I know that your sister has the absolute best of intentions, and she knows just as well the care that she provides is to the best of her abilities in the abilities that she does. But at the end of the day, she has a bias, whether she likes it or not, because she depends on that bias, right? She has to depend on. So what I suggest to people, is be entirely critical of everything, because the animals are relying on that, because there's been too many animal rights organizations for too long who have been purporting to be doing anything good. And I am here to tell you, as an independent person in the last decade at fighting for animals' rights and against animal rights protesters, I'm here to tell you that it's a big pool. It's an ocean. People don't want to give up any space at the top, because there's a well-oiled and funded machine, and everyone wants to keep that machine rolling, right? And again, I'm not critical of entirely everything, but what I'm saying is the most effective people today are critical of everything, right? All systems are now in play when it comes to criticizing. We've had animals in captivity for too long. Why haven't the organizations we've been giving money to gotten it right? Why is it that it takes a person like me, a whistleblower, to take a great deal of risk at a great deal of expense to reveal animal cruelty, for suddenly these animal rights organizations to come in and start using my materials to make posters to try to solicit more funds for what again? I don't remember you rescuing my whales. So I'm moving on. We're going to do this without you.
Yeah. I love that. Like, the biggest example for that for me is, like, we're heavy in the ocean pollution space. Like, we want to help clean the oceans, and I want to create technologies that are going to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, those are cool.
And the ocean cleanup, Boya and Slat, like, I want to be able to do a lot of what he's done because I see the impact he's making.
It's very cool.
But I think the biggest thing is the biggest organizations in that space up until the last 5 years have done fuck all. Like, they literally say, like, I'm talking for the overfishing and stuff on the back end. When you look at the finances they're doing, a lot of them are a bit shady on where they're putting money. And
did you look at the back end of finances of a charitable organization?
I didn't get to.
Don't do that. My God, don't do that. That's a big no-no. So you're going to find out very quickly that those are all weld oil machines that benefit the stakeholders, if you will. I don't want to use that term in terms of like actual investment in and profit sharing, but no, the CEOs make the big monies, the gift shops make the monies, the advertisers make the monies, and generally generally speaking, the resources allocating to the actual on-ground work are always the least, always. And that's why I always say when it comes to when you're going to these zoos or these places that are purporting that keeping these animals in captivity helps fund the wild ones, why is it that the exit's always through the gift shop? I don't understand that. Why do I got to buy something? And why is it when it comes time for the tough questions, the CEO that gets paid a lot of money, never around to give me the actual answers? Anyways, food for thought. I'm saying
can we trust
everything is broken. Sorry?
Who do we trust though? Like in all these organizations that say they do this, they say they do that, they say this is their mission. Who do we trust?
You trust the ones with a vision for the future. So right now I'm throwing my endorsement behind. There's a whale sanctuary project that looks to be built in the next year or two in the east coast of Canada. They just need funding at the $15 to $20 million mark. They could be built and ready to host whales. I mean, that is the future. I'm sorry.
Is 15 to 20 million enough? Because it sounds like
20 million builds the entirety of the infrastructure, and then it's going to require something to the tune of millions per year. But once there's whales in those waters, I mean, look, that's my objective. 20 million gets me whales in water.
Yeah.
After that, I'll keep whales in water. That's not going to be a problem. Getting them there's the problem. It takes 15 to, I was told 12 to 15. I'm saying 20. So we go with 20 million. So that's less than an actual construction of another pool at SeaWorld or Marineland. I mean, frankly, it's really a drop in the ocean.
That's why
for
I ask. That's why I ask, because I know other startups and stuff that are doing that kind of thing or that need that similar thing. Like they're needing 40, 50 million to just get it off the ground. And then that's if they don't fail more than once or twice.
The ocean is there. Building a fence in an already existing ocean to house formerly captive animals in putting them under human care, but back in an environment that is natural to them. It doesn't require digging. It doesn't require the
So you're talking about ocean cages?
Yes. Well, I don't want to say cages because that's not what it is. I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's going to be free flowing water. There's going to be the rising and lowering of the tide. There's going to be an exchange of water. So wherever, whatever is accrued in terms of feces, it's flushed out. I mean, we're talking about nature, but still in human care. If some of these animals over the period, now imagine this is something that's going to be expanded on forevermore. Some animals that prove to be candidates for wild release, that's precisely what will happen to them, but only and perfectly responsibly. But this will be the type of facility that could accommodate such a thing. The team's already built, the permits are set in place. This is an actual real thing. So I get behind the people with the visions. There's also in Norway, there's a beluga whale sanctuary as we speak, and they've got 2 beluga whales in there. They're looking to get 6 more. To me, we need to expedite getting those 6 more. That means getting bodies of whales out of those pools and back into the body of natural waters. And that's what we need to expedite and do. So to me, I throw my endorsement behind exactly that. So I don't get behind old archaic systems because the data is there. We can see whether or not that's worked. It hasn't. It's not, look, I could very well go work for an organization, be a mouthpiece for them, make a decent enough wage, and put a nice collared shirt on, and that would probably be nice. But
that takes away your voice, though.
Well, I can't be kicking down politicians' doors. Yeah. I can't be organizing protests where, I mean, my strength is in my independence, and my danger is that I'm critical of everybody. I'm not here to wholly and solely endorse certain projects. No, I'm going to criticize everyone. Nobody's safe. I have that luxury, and it doesn't always work in my benefit, but it is a powerful place and to be, because when I'm sitting down at these tables, every member at the table who are trying to come together with these plans to change the world, they have letters attributed next to their name on account of their educations. They have organizations that they're representing. Otherwise, they're dressed in suits and whatnot. And there's one motherfucker at the table who just has his name. It just says Phil Demers. There's no title. No one knows what to do with the fucking guy. And he's at the head of the table with the microphone. Well, I like that position. I'm sorry. It doesn't pay the bills. But again, I'm not here to get the fucking bills paid.
If we
I'll
can
stop
add a
eating.
title to the start of your name, and it doesn't have to be doctor, it doesn't have to be professor, what would the title be? Is it the fucking legend Phil? Like, what is it? What the fuck is the title? What
maybe instead of MR as in Mr., maybe go MF.
MF. Love it.
I'll take it.
Love it. Now, you accumulate a lot of following very, very quickly, and people that absolutely support you. Your protests at the moment, I see them online, and I'm like, this guy is crazy.
Ooh, we got that energy, baby.
And that's the word I'm going to use for you. And it's a compliment, not an insult. But talk to me about accumulating these. Are they what would you call them? They're not riots, they're protests, yeah? Like
protests, yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I prefer to call them demonstrations, whereas in years past I would call them demonstrations because you would protest. The word protest generally brings about apprehensions. People don't know if it's going to be a violent thing, and our demonstrations are the complete opposite. I mean, in fact, we've befriended all the police. I shouldn't even admit this, but the police come to my house afterwards, out of uniform, sometimes in uniform, mostly after hours, literally hours after the protest. And we come enjoy a couple beers and we have some food and everything else. So I chose in 2021 to reassume the word protest because I'm angry. In 2021, I'm angry, and we are protesting. And I used the term in challenge to Marineland, who legally have complained of that term. And so we were not bound, but we elected to use the term demonstration in years past. And just as whereas in years past, Marineland threatened that if I ever used a megaphone or a bullhorn or an electronic means to make my voice louder, this year I throw it in their faces that I use it. I blast it directly in their
image
faces.
without a
and that's not an accident. And so in years past, that was something that I wasn't. My lawyer was very steadfast that I not use, and for years I wouldn't. And then one day I said, you know what? I'm tired. Let's see what they do. And I put that thing way up in the air and I blast. It's the cover of my documentary. You actually see it's the very first time I elect on my own in the moment to just climb this ladder that was set up because they put this big wall up. It's called Phil's fence to keep the people who are in line to go to Marineland from seeing us. And I climbed that fence and I put the bullhorn in the air in a strict defiance of Marineland and their lawyer. And that today is my image of defiance. So you've noted that, hey, Phil, you've been seeing a lot of pictures of you with the bullhorn, because for me personally, it is a straight defiance to Marineland's lawyer. It is a challenge to say, you told me I couldn't and I did. Think of all the other things you said I couldn't do that I'm doing. Now think of all the things I've promised I said I would do. Now look at what I'm doing. Now listen to the following promises from my bullhorn in your fucking face.
I love it. I love it. I can tell the energy.
You can see the veins start to come out of my arms. They start to get.
Now I wanted to say, the Marineland Lawyer, like, you've been in a battle. I'm sure you're getting sick of talking about it, but I know that every time that hypes back up, that gets more people supporting you. At least it looks like it does. What's the battle like with the one guy over 9 years who just wants blood?
So what I'll say is, historically, he always purported to be a very dangerous man. And the letters that he would very strongly word towards myself and others that were being sued were very intimidating. And boy, in a world where you were concerned about losing the entirety of your fiscal sovereignty and all your material objects, and that you're staring down the barrel of being broke forever because this big scary man from a big city in a big suit has come around, that's a hell of a thing. And when that man also sends other tough guys to physically intimidate you, and I mean, I shouldn't say that man hiding behind the title of lawyer, behind a agency that has a title that assumes the responsibility of the things he does because it's legal means. Whereas if he had done the things he's doing personally, that would be, that would be harassment to the nth degree and then some. But anyways, in the early days, that could be very intimidating. And over time, it's just like if anyone else calls out a bully. Bullies never punch as hard as they bark. They just don't. When you get the bully, the school bully in front of the principal, you ever notice there's that little pee stain in front of their pants thereafter? I'm not going to say literally, but Marineland's lawyer, every time he goes to court, boy, I feel as though his briefcase has more changes of underwear than evidence to rely on. And so what happens is it empowers you over time to see your bully start to do caca and pee-pee in his pants over the fact that you're no longer intimidated and you're starting to call them out for the very things. And then you start to see that this is a thinly veiled assault on everything that is right in life. And so that man, despite the fact that he is hiding behind his profession and he is a tool for as oppression through this corporation and everything else, I've reduced him to that of a young child out of his element. And I will say something. There's nothing more empowering than brutalizing your abuser. I hate to say this. It sounds awful because it sounds like it's not right. But wait a second. This man tried to destroy my life, the people that I loved, the friends that I have, my family. They tried. You got to remember, when you hurt me, you hurt the people in my family. Everyone said everyone's life got compromised because of this man's efforts to protect and to propagate abuse and to protect abusers and to propagate abuse. I have no empathy for this man, because I also believe he's also got ulterior motives. I believe that he is motivated by greed. I also believe that he's found himself in what he believed to be a gratuitous situation where he was going to make a lot of money rather easily. And, I still have the interests of the Marineland owners or the heir of the owner still in mind. She's a lovely woman. The Marineland's owner died some years ago. So now she is merely trusting this lawyer to, at this point, sell the property, sell the assets and whatnot. She's just a really elderly old lady walking around. Well, he's hiding behind her just as well as he's hiding behind the Marineland name and everything else. But whereas in years, he was always very proudly being Marineland spokesperson, et cetera. Now he calls himself external counsel to Marineland. And interestingly, all of my efforts this year, which by the way have been incredible, we've gone viral more than ever. 2021 will go down as the year.
How many times you've gone viral this year?
Yeah, 2021 will be the greatest year in anti-Marineland campaigning history, and it will be untouched evermore and has never been. And we're still building momentum for that matter. I've not heard a peep from that little man, not a thing. And whereas I used to get, they've sent the police to my house over mere tweets. One time I tweeted "Life is short, steal a walrus."
Tell me,
and they sent police to my house.
So
in every which means
something, and they.
Marineland has sent the police to my house a number of times. Let's say dozens of times. Frankly, that's not the only tweet I've tweeted. One time I tweeted "Stay tuned," and they took that as a literal thing. I can get into the detail. It gets very boring. All Marineland's lawyer looked to do over the many years is try to squeeze as much money as he could out of Marineland and try to purport as though it was in their best interest. It was not. It is not. They only made me stronger. Marineland's lawyer has failed on exactly every single front that he has ever stuck his nose into and tried to meddle with. In fact, some would say, anyone intimate with intimate knowledge of the situation might outright say the greatest tool of advocacy against Marineland has been the puppeteering of their lawyer. And I would say precisely that over the years I extracted, mind you, he got rich, but his karma's coming. We squeezed Marineland. I just used Marineland's lawyer to continue to slip up on repeat and to make myself more valuable and stronger. Every time Marineland's lawyer slips up, which by the way, were on account of the fact that I would throw banana peels behind him. I would kick him while he's down, take pictures, pull down his pants, take pictures. It would go viral. By the time
this is hypothetical right now. Like you didn't
physically
do that.
None of this is literal. Well, not yet.
You
not
literally
yet because
did
he hasn't had the opportunity.
But you didn't physically do it. If that makes
Stay
any
tuned.
sense.
But of course, Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I wanted to catch back on this, but the first tweet I ever saw of you was, and I forgot the first part of it, but it was something steal a walrus. Can you say that tweet?
Yeah, life
That
is
was the
short,
funniest
steal a
thing.
walrus.
Life is short.
I tweeted,
steal a
"Life
walrus.
is short, steal a walrus." It's actually the very end of my documentary is exactly that. I tweet it, and the police come, and there's like video of them coming to my house and confronting me about this tweet. And they themselves are apologetic to have to be there, but they're there because Marineland, they feel threatened that that they feel as though my life is short and that I may steal a walrus. It might be worth noting that Marineland sued me in 2013 for $1.5 million for plotting to steal a walrus. So it's just any opportunity to fit that their lawyer's crazy little narrative and for him to squeeze out a little bit of money. And again, all I do is take advantage of it because look, if you've got an imbecile at the helm, it just makes it real easy. And I have to say it, he's just completely imbecilic. He's just a complete imbecile. He's again from the old guard. He knows of an old system where he can intimidate people into silence. Well, it didn't work for me. And not only that, it actually bolstered me, it emboldened me. And now I'm using his bullshit as a weapon against him. I'm actually all the bullshit that he was trying to send my way. I've got the shovel. Now, and he's at the bottom. He's dug himself too far deep into a hole. Well, guess who's got the shovel? Guess who's going to bury him in that shit? I'm going to fill him eye hole deep. Eye hole deep, baby.
You love it, I can tell. Yeah,
I do. It's my time and I deserve it. And it's not only for my ego to be appeased. It's that this man tried to keep my animals in a state of harm. That man has to pay.
And it's not
I'm going to enjoy
animals,
it.
Any animals. I'm
going to enjoy it.
Of harm. Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Now, Smooshie, I know it's a sensitive topic. It's a beautiful story. It turned vulgar. I've never actually heard what the end result with Smooshie was. Has she saved it? Did the impregnation, was she ever confirmed pregnant? Like what happened?
She was. So she had a baby, and at the moment of the birth, Marineland separated both baby and mother. So she has a now,
which is the worst thing you can do, right?
And they stay separated. So Smooshie is alive. This calf, his name is Koyak, a male, is alive. They're kept in separate rooms. They can see each other. They can smell each other. But Marineland takes them out independent of each other to go perform on stage every day. They don't live together. What they've done is they've taken Smooshie, they forced bred her so that they wouldn't only have one remaining walrus, because anytime you have one particular species of an animal, it gets a lot more attention than not. They forced Apollo, the last male, died in the very month that Smooshie gets impregnated. I mean, you figure it out. When we did necropsies, we always extracted semen and froze it for every species we ever had. They had some.
If I'm wrong, impregnating a walrus is extremely difficult to do in captivity.
Difficult and rare.
For them to outside, right. Yeah.
Right. So there is a facility in Berlin that is experts at it, and Marineland had them fly down, in fact, and they were the ones that assisted in all of this.
Is that confirmed or alligated?
Yeah. I mean, I can't provide any additional context to that, but yeah, no, I've got the story. I've got the entirety of the story. Absolutely. In fact, I got documents and everything else. All things in the stay tuned department, because again, any which opportunity that Marineland's lawyer tries to say that, well, we wanted to move Smooshie, but there was a problem. No, there wasn't a problem. They just at the 11th hour asked for $100,000 extra when they otherwise should have had Smooshie moved to another facility. But those are all details that are coming out in my book that people will buy, and that I'm going to use that. I'm going to allocate that money to, I don't know. Maybe I'll buy a house across from Marineland's lawyer's house. We'll figure it out. We'll have some fun. We're going to have some fun. That's for sure. So stay tuned. We are going to have some fun.
So just real quick, facts and figures, walruses live for around 25 to 30 years.
Yeah. And not in captivity though. That would be a representation of the wild. Although in captivity, there are plenty of examples of long living walruses, because frankly, you can keep them in captivity, and it's not that they can thrive, it's that they're not as great a challenge as some animals. facility wise, it can be. That doesn't make any excuse for Marineland has gone through 8 or 9 walruses in less than a decade. They're killing them off at an incredible rate. In fact, Smooshie has already exceeded the lifespan of all those animals. The only reason that she's still alive is she thinks her mother still lives there, and that's crazy. But that is why.
And you're her mother, yeah?
That's right.
She okay. And she's 18 this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now,
just about.
What's the average age that a walrus is supposed to have babies, and it's safe for them to have babies in captivity?
Earlier, that I understand she had a miscarriage long ago. But again, if you look up any successful walrus births in captivity, it's very rare because you just require certain environmental factors like natural lighting, certain like UV rays, and some fresh air. And Marineland can't accommodate any of those things. Yeah. So it was the fact that it required a level of expertise from Berlin, and that the idea was that they were going to, import Smooshie and then have the baby born in Berlin. That was their original premise. But things got squirrely with the lawyer. I'm told the lawyer's not to be trusted from a number of sources. Police included. Sorry, what? Okay, sorry.
Do you have a cough there? I've always used that one. Now, your documentaries, I'm yet to go back and watch them because they just make me cry every time. And I recommend for anyone listening to go and watch them. But what was it like, and tell me how the process of that went with creating the documentary, and did people reach out to you for it? Like, what happened?
Yeah, so I was reached out by a number of different people, and eventually I found my fit in a girl that was actually a friend of mine's older sister, who happened to be an independent filmmaker, and she'd been watching the story from afar. And, she grew up in my hometown. It just seemed like a perfect fit. I had my apprehensions because I kind of wanted it to be more professional. I didn't want for someone that could ultimately rely on some of my, just knowing me a little bit more, just having a little bit of knowledge of my history and of my personality, and to have access to people that I would otherwise not necessarily give as sources. For instance, like this is someone that could otherwise have gone to multiple corners of the world to learn about me, and without my knowing. It's like kind of a weird one. So, but I did ultimately put my trust in her and had her come in. It's what resulted in it being a more vulnerable film than not. Like, there's scenes where I'm naked in there. There's scenes where I'm, I just sort of, it opened the film up to a side of me that I think otherwise would have probably not have been. So it was arduous, it was painful, but the hope was that it would become cathartic and that it would offer me some closure, because, again, I stress that it's not the easiest, it's no picnic to be me, but it's not something, I am at the end of the day, the most expert at being me. So I'm still best suited to play this role. But, it was tough. It was almost 3 years in the making. And the shame of it is, and I really feel for the filmmaker and all this, because, she's the one who lost ultimately. But the film was to come out literally the week as COVID started to shut everything down. Like, it was a third week of March, or it was to be announced in April. It could not have actually happened. The film could not have been released in arguably maybe the worst time in human history to release a film. Whereas we were supposed to have red carpet premieres in big cities and all these exciting, all the exciting things a filmmaker looks forward to. That was all reduced to online releases and really just Zoom meetings and that. So, there's something about that was a bit disappointing, but in terms of how the film was made and how it was received, I mean, it's incredibly powerful. I love it. The shame of it is so much time has passed now. Is like it's almost antiquated. I mean, we know what's become of Smooshie. At the time, we didn't. It was great to have documented the process of passing laws and everything now, but now we're to a point where, with all that having been done, the conditions that Marineland's animals are worse. I've never become more strong in my fight. I mean, the film was about sort of my ascension from not very powerful to, let's say, rather influential. Well, here we are today. I think that if the cameras were to start rolling today and film for the next 3 years, wow, would you see some action? It would be something. So it's something I miss. I say, let's do it again. Not with the same filmmaker, not with the same production company.
Can
Well,
we
I
expect another blockbuster or a blockbuster that doesn't
so
have COVID
I'll
shutdowns?
I'll say this. I agreed 2 days ago. I haven't signed anything, but I have agreed 2 days ago to resume filming with a new professional film crew with intents on documenting things that are happening. I may very well do it. It sucks. I don't know that it'll be as involved as the first one, but yeah, there's parts of it that are great. There's parts of it that sucks. I miss the. I wish, in retrospect, that I'd have been in a different state of mind for the filmmaking, because I didn't take it very serious, and I think that much had much to do with, well, my ego, and a lot of times when you know something's going to take 3 years to build, you don't believe it's going to happen, so you sort of approach it a little more lackadaisical and everything. I feel like I wish I would have maybe invested more of taken it a bit more serious, maybe. And I think that was just the one of the challenges. That was sort of like one of the detriments of having gone with someone that I otherwise sort of knew of, because when I was a young child, she was an older sister, a filmmaker, right? And I was friends with her younger brother. And so when you're young and you see this older sister, she's the biggest person in the world all the time. It's like it's kind of this. She's cool, and she's got the cool friends, and look, she's got a record player, and she's got a poster on her wall. So some of that sort of that spilled over in the making of the film. Whereas I always felt like I was looking up to like an older sister and almost mother-like figure. So again, it had its benefits, but it also caused for it to be a very emotionally involving thing. So I'd like to maybe move forward with a new project without that aspect. Like, I don't know if I need to be naked in a bathtub to be filmed anymore. Maybe not. I don't mind being filmed with my shirt off, like marching down Queen's Park or taking over a Marineland sign and climbing all over it with the bullhorn and a bunch of people with signs. Yeah, I like that. Let's do it. But maybe the whole metaphoric soft side of stuff. Maybe it's time to start. Maybe make a film less about my vulnerabilities and more about my right hooks.
What'd you learn in the first film? Like, was there like things that you realized that you're going to do differently for this next one?
Yeah, I learned that despite no matter anyone's intention, no matter what in the moment they promise, don't trust anybody. Just don't. And I'm not saying it as if I'm jaded from the process and that I wasn't. It's just that when certain individual interests are achieved, they move on. I felt as though in the filming of the documentary that I established a team and an almost family that were not going to be satisfied until the story was done, or that something would be done. But that's just not the case. I was a resource as a means to make a film. It was made, and most of the people and many of the people that had purported to be interested forever and never going to leave, and all these other things, all these activists, and some of the people that knew that there was a film being made and suddenly put on a little extra makeup, and suddenly the top's a little shorter or the muscles. Hey, did you just come back? Did you just come from the gym? All those people sort of disappeared after the film went away. Now, granted, COVID came, and it's a number of circumstances that happened, but no, at the end of the day, I say exclusively and only trust and rely on yourself. That's it. It just is. Trust your instinct, but do the same as everyone else. Assume that life is a series of hellos and goodbyes, most of which will be forgotten. Some will define you. That's the same to be said in interpersonal relationships, in experiences, in everything. You will say hello to things, and you will say goodbye to things. You will say goodbye to everything. Like, know that you will say goodbye to everything, despite the notion that it won't happen. Know that it will. As soon as you're comfortable with the notion that everything has a beginning and an ending, including yourself, well, then every minute wasted is a risk.
Yeah.
Every minute wasted is the greatest risk of your life. That is the greatest risk you have in life, is wasting your time. So it's just a question of perspective. And when I say just trust no one, what I mean is say your hellos and assume that they will all at one point be goodbyes.
protect ourselves.
if you take that and you apply it to sort of how I've fought and gone ahead moving forward in my fight against Marineland, it is exactly that. I've armed myself to the tune that in every which way that the weapons that can be used against me in advocacy, that I am armed with those too, that I can have those tools, that I'm just as equally dangerous. And my weapon's my voice, because again, everyone's trying to suppress my voice and take it away from me. So in the realm of advocacy and law and whatever, all this legislation stuff, my voice is the most powerful tool I have. When you talk about guns versus no guns, it's no different. Voice versus no voice. And that's why it's always important for me to empower myself with my independent voice. Always has been my most dangerous weapon. And it's been because Marineland tried so difficult so hard to silence me. And so I would say the same pushback that you will get from the citizens who are deciding now, hey, wait a second, you are not taking our voice, or you're not taking this. That's going to be the pushback. And, eventually the people pushing back will get the weapons. It sounds crazy, but that's just the balance. That's the balance of it. But again, like where you say, you see the just how quickly things could de-escalate into a place where you would say to yourself, damn, we all need weapons. I mean, that's what the states are trying to hold on to. They're trying to say, hey, the government's our tyrant. We need our weapons in the event that the government turns against us. I'm not saying that it's rational thinking or whatever. I'm just saying that is the scenario.
I'm scared of driving along and someone having road rage and pulling a gun on me.
It emboldens the craziest. Yeah. Sadly, it emboldens the least reasonable. It emboldens the lowest common denominator, right? And that's the problem. Is you want to still hope that there's a regulatory body that keeps the hands out of the criminals or the dum-dums, but in freedom, that's where that becomes an entirely different thing. And you don't want the elitist and then the police only to have it, this and that. It's just ugly, man. Just try to live your life unencumbered.
I have no comments on it. I'm not going to comment on it because I don't want to get backlashed in 5 years.
I live in Canada. I live in Canada. I'm like you. We don't have a lot. I'm in Niagara Falls, Canada. Yeah, but I mean, almost a lot of people I know own hunting rifles for the purpose of hunting, but they're all locked away. They're never ever used in crime. Like even gun crime here is in the bigger cities getting a little bit more rampant and whatnot. But we have a lot of guns. We have a gun happy culture. We just don't have the crime. So it doesn't translate virtually that by virtue of having guns, it makes you criminals.
I'll say
sometimes it's maybe the threat of losing them that makes you fucking angry. It's a primal urge. It's to try to get that excitement level up. But at the end of the day, is it something that we need? No, it's just not. It's like, I look at motorcycles. Someone show up at my house. I'm like, vroom, vroom. I'm like, cool. That looks really fast. If we could transform all the unused horsepower that you will always use for the rest of your life, you will turn that vehicle into a $1,000 bike that goes zin, 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 because really its unused potential in its value and everything else is just such a waste. So you got this big arsenal thing that at the end of the day, you use 3 times at a gun range to get your kicks off. It's like, dude, really though? Really? If you look at all the value, you better off just getting a handgun and showing up weekly or a pellet gun or something, right? I'm just saying. Sometimes just people like to show off their might and potential.
There's great simulations. I think that's a great solution to it. Like for the people that say I want it for fun, like the simulations are getting really freaking good.
We just got to get better, safer drugs. I mean, if someone really needs to get off like that, it's like, fuck, plug them into a chair and just give them the best drugs ever and have them sit there and sort of fry like bacon a bit on the chair and make sure it's safe and then have them come back.
Crazy,
fuck, no one's dead.
What we can do with technology these days, like the way that it's coming around.
I do see a future very soon. I say it all the time when I talk about my retirement. It's like, well, what's your retirement plan? Well, my retirement plan is going to be putting on that virtual helmet, the slow drip in my arm. I don't care where the fuck I go. I'll be whatever age I want, doing whatever it is I want. I'll just be fed through a tube to keep myself conscious enough, and then the rest of it is just electric pulses. If I can't fish anymore because I'm too old, give me the helmet and I'm going fishing again. So yeah, shoot all the high power rifles you want in a simulation and make that the entirety of your retirement. But let's make it so that it's simulated. You're not having to melt metal.
Yeah. Alrighty, man. Well, I'm gonna thank you for coming on the episode, spending a bit of time with me. It's been fantastic talking with you,
Dude, anytime.
And I honestly, I hope anyone that's listening to this, go across, give him a follow, send him a message. He's an awesome guy. And it's funny. I'm a big person in personality types, and you're a very D personality type when it comes to Messenger, man. Like I sent you a message and you just sent me the shortest reply, and I was like, this guy hates me.
No.
But when you message him, guys, just realize that he's a busy guy and he's got so much on his plate, but he genuinely cares, and he knows his shit. So send him a message, get involved, and whenever you can, support him. What are the best ways to support you, man?
SaveSmooshie.com if you want to send me a couple bucks. If you're looking for some swag, stealawalrus.com. Otherwise, my name is Phil Demers. Phil Demers on TikTok. I'm Phil Demers on Facebook. I'm Walrus Whisperer on Twitter, and Walrus Whisperer with a underscore between the two words on Instagram. So give me a follow and stay tuned. Again, just buckle up. We're about to have a lot of fun.
All of those will be in the description of the post, guys, on the main episode. So make sure you head across and give him the support. Donate if you can. And if you can't, be a voice and help share his voice further, because it's impactful when he gets to have every mic in his hand. So help him get more of them. And I want to thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions. And Phil Demers, I want to thank you so much for being on the episode, man. You're an absolute legend.
Dude, thank you. It's my pleasure. And anytime. Anytime.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
See you guys next week on next week's episode. Bye.